We are talking about now. Well, and in the past. I mean, in the past. Because really we're talking about body modification, but we're talking about how it started. Right? Why the hell did anybody go, you know what? I'm going to take this piece of bone and I'm going to shove it through my ear.
Yeah.
That was the thing that somebody somewhere thought up.
They thought they
You know,
looked cute.
bone, wood, and then eventually we got to metal. And we started using metal for a lot of that. But what about body modification is something that humans started doing?
Probably because they're
It's
environment.
self-expression.
Self-expression?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, what does self-expression do for the human then?
Well, there's one interesting example that I think is close to home. Say, in particular, has a copy of this tattoo on like her shoulder or something. But there was an old, like Neanderthal lady that got dug up or picked out from an iceberg that had one of the earliest examples of a tattoo on a human being, and it was this image of a deer with like some flowers involved, like very, you would not blink if you saw it today. But just think about that, like ancient woman. Random person had this one little identification, this one little detail that thousands of years later, when she was dug up and like annexed into science and anthropology, makes her so famous that now other people are copying it, including some of the people I know. And this particular tattoo is now famous along with her, even though we don't know her name. So individuality, sure.
And rebellion, maybe.
Ooh,
I know another story, tattoo related, of women in particular who will tattoo all over their face, like down their kind of jaw here and then like around the eyes, permanent tattoos because that made them ineligible or undesirable as slaves for Islamic slavers. Somewhere in like, I think Northern Africa, like Northern Africa, Middle East, area.
Okay.
So that's now a tattoo for defense as opposed to self-expression.
Okay.
I think it's like birds. Like, you know how birds want to be pretty to attract a mate?
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily tattooing body modification to attract a mate, but to be received as like, oh, they're interesting. I'm going to pay attention to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's an important point. Self-expression and, to a larger extent, identification. Okay, but there's lots of ways to do that, right? You don't actually need to impale yourself, cause bleeding, potentially death, simply because you want individuality, right? There was clothes, you can do your hair differently, wear jewelry. There's lots of external things that don't require you to actually cause pain to your body to modify it. So why would we want to do that?
Go back to rebellion.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Rebellion.
Yeah.
The counterculture. Sam and I were actually talking about this musician that he puts out this newsletter monthly, and he is one of the best writers I have found on he always brings up some thought-provoking cultural aspect to his writing. He was talking about how cool has died, because cool once upon a time was the counterculture push. It was, you want us to do this and wear clothes that fit, and we're going to wear baggy clothes and dye our hair crazy colors and chains dangling off our belts and all that kind of stuff. And that was cool, at least for my generation. But for like Gen Z today, cool has kind of gone out the window because everybody is selling out to get money, right? You get any kind of status, fame, whatever, you're like, put me on an advertisement, I don't care, I'll be on that box of cookies, I don't care, I'll wear those shoes, I don't care. And people don't care because the money is more important than actually making a stance that they matter and how they express themselves matter, and it's not for money or for show. Which kills what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Because then what do? How do you act in rebellion if money is the thing you have to rebel against? I won't take your money. I mean, how many of us are really in a position to be like, fuck you, I'm gonna take your money? Right?
I have seen like videos of people rebelling against the system and they're like becoming homeless and not, you know, they're not rebelling in the same way, I guess. It's not modifying your body in
But I mean, you bring up a really great point because, and we'll see in some of the videos, I'm not going to go too in depth for this part, but we'll see that, you know, oftentimes what happened in the culture was that they used marking to actually oppress that person or like mark them with tattoos for slavery, things like that. But then, you know, you do that enough, and there's plenty of people out there now with tattoos. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to get more tattoos. And eventually, it's going to be that countercultural thing of like somebody in the elites like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And next thing you know, if one person does it and it's a trickle-down effect. It's like, oh, that person says it's okay, so I guess we can do it. And so we'll see a little bit of that. But going back to my question, so I think all these are good answers, and I don't know if there's a right answer. I don't know what the right answer would be. But in my estimation, one of the things that we do as a human when we actually pierce, scar, cut out, whatever we're doing to modify our bodies, what we're actually doing is we're saying, I'm going to sacrifice a piece of me in order for the greater good of my self-expression. So I do think it comes down to self-expression, but I do think that it is rooted in I'm willing to sacrifice parts of me. Unequivocally, right? You can't get it back. Once you got that hole in your ear, it's not coming back. Right? For most piercings, it's gonna be for your whole life. Like the Africans that do the lip rings, you know, the gauges in your ears. There's no going back after that. And so it's a way to, one, say, I am committed to this to such a degree that you cannot undo it. I mean, and we'll learn about some of the tattooing where they tattooed their whole body as part of this. And that was part of a story, their journey through life. So it was sacrificing parts of yourself so that your story would be on your literal skin.
I still really like that example of the women in Northern Africa because the complete opposite reason, instead of like telling a story being like a story of self-expression, they would physically alter their bodies, like tattoo themselves on the face to make themselves undesirable to Islamist slavers who wanted people who had no tattoos because that's like a normal thing or something. Tattoos. So they're like, okay, I'm gonna go over here with these undesirable people like marking my face with black ink. And then like you won't touch me. I can be independent. So it's like that same punk like rebelliousness. But for the complete opposite reason, it's not self-expression. It's a funky.
Well, self-expression in a way, it's saying I know what you value and fuck your values.
Right.
You know, it's literally saying you want me to do something, and because I don't want to do it, I'm gonna do the opposite so that I am not appealing to you.
And stay away from you. Yeah. You can't touch me. You won't touch me.
Yeah.
Try me. Yeah, exactly.
So, interesting. All right. So, let's start with our first video. This one's gonna talk more about piercings. I tried to get some that talk about cultures in a bunch of different lights, but this one did a good job of let's see. Yeah, let's start with this one. So we'll actually start with the tattoos. and then we'll go from there. All right.
Simple Things, where we delve into the fascinating history behind the little things that shape our world. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into a topic that's been a part of human history for thousands of years: the origin of tattoos. Tattoos, while now considered a form of self-expression, have deep cultural and historical roots. Whether you've got ink yourself or you've admired it on others, the art of tattooing is something that transcends time, geography, and culture. But where did tattoos come from? How did this ancient practice begin? And what's its significance in different parts of the world? We'll explore all of that, including a special mention of the world's oldest tattoo artist, who's still keeping this ancient art alive today. Tattooing is much older than many people realize. The practice dates back to ancient times, with one of the earliest known examples being the famous mummy, discovered in 1991 in the Ötztal Alps. This 5,300-year-old mummy, known as Ötzi the Iceman, bore several tattoos on his body. These simple lines and crosses were thought to have been made by rubbing charcoal into small cuts in the skin. Unlike the intricate designs we see today, Ötzi's tattoos were functional, possibly used for pain relief or as part of a healing ritual. But Ötzi wasn't the only ancient person to have been inked. Egyptian mummies dating back to around 2000 BC were also found to have tattoos. These tattoos were often symbols of protection or fertility, and most were found on women. Meanwhile, in ancient Greece and Rome, tattoos were used to mark slaves and criminals. The tattoos, known as stigmata, acted as a branding system, labeling those who wore them as belonging to a lower class or as punishment for their crimes. What's fascinating about these early tattoos is how they spanned various cultures that were far removed from one another. While Ötzi was tattooed in Europe, Egyptian tattoos were flourishing at the same time. And thousands of miles away in Polynesia and Japan, tattooing also had deep cultural significance. Speaking of Polynesia, this region of the world is where the modern word tattoo comes from. The Polynesian word tatau, which means to strike or to mark, referred to the process of tattooing, which was both painful and spiritually meaningful. In Polynesian culture, tattoos were used to signify a person's rank, lineage, and accomplishments. The designs were intricate and could cover large portions of the body from head to toe. The tattooing process was an ordeal in itself. Traditional Polynesian tattoo artists used tools made from bone or tusks, with the ink made from soot or natural pigments. The tattoo artist, or tufuga, was highly respected, and the act of being tattooed was seen as a rite of passage. Each tattoo told a story, symbolizing strength, courage, and personal history. Similarly, in Japan, tattooing has a long history that dates back to at least 10,000 BC. Initially, tattoos in Japan were used for religious and spiritual purposes. But by the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, tattoos were adopted by the lower classes and used as marks of punishment or allegiance to criminal groups like the Yakuza. This darker side of tattooing persisted into the 19th and early 20th centuries. In Europe and the United States, tattoos were often associated with sailors, criminals, and people on the fringes of society. However, this began to change as it slowly became a part of mainstream culture, thanks in part to artists who pushed the boundaries of what tattoos could be. Tattoos were also deeply ingrained in the spiritual and ritual practices of many indigenous cultures. In North America, Indigenous tribes like the Inuit and Haida used tattoos to mark significant life events or spiritual milestones. For Inuit women, tattoos were a sign of womanhood and were believed to help guide them in the afterlife. These tattoos were carefully placed and chosen, often designed to connect the wearer with their ancestors or protect them from evil spirits. Similarly, the Maori people of New Zealand have a rich tattooing tradition. Their facial tattoos, known as moko, are some of the most iconic in the world. Moko was more than just a design. It was a deeply personal expression of a person's lineage, social status, and achievements. The process of receiving moko was intense, with chisels used to carve the skin, leaving behind grooves and scars that made the tattoos stand out in three-dimensional relief. For the Maori, moko was a way of preserving their identity and heritage, even in the face of colonization and cultural suppression. Now let's jump ahead to the present day and talk about a living legend in the tattoo world, Wang Od. She's considered the world's oldest traditional tattoo artist, and she's keeping the ancient art of tattooing alive in the Philippines. Born in 1917, she belongs to the Kalinga ethnic group, a tribe known for its headhunting tradition and distinctive tattooing style called batek. Wang Od learned the art of tattooing from her father when she was a teenager, using the traditional hand-tapping technique, where a thorn from a pomelo tree is dipped into ink made from soot, and then tapped into the skin with a bamboo stick. In the past, these tattoos were given to warriors who had proven their bravery in battle. For women, it were a symbol of beauty, strength, and readiness for marriage. Even at over 100 years old, Wang Od continues to tattoo, and people from all over the world travel to her remote village of Buscalan in the Philippines to be tattooed by her. She's considered a Mamba Batak, a master tattooist, and while many of the traditions of her tribe have faded, Wang Od has become a bridge between the past and the present, preserving her culture's tattooing heritage while inspiring new generations of tattoo enthusiasts. Her story is a testament to how tattooing is not just a trend, but a timeless art that carries with it stories of identity, culture, and resilience. Today, tattoos have evolved from their ancient origins and become a mainstream form of self-expression. What was once associated with sailors, criminals, or outcasts is now embraced by people from all walks of life. Celebrities, athletes, and public figures have helped normalize tattoos, and the rise of tattoo parlors in urban areas has turned tattooing into a respected profession and art form. Tattoos are no longer limited to simple symbols or cultural markers. Modern tattoo artists are pushing the boundaries of what can be done with ink, creating detailed, intricate pieces that can rival traditional forms of art. From realistic portraits to abstract designs, tattoos have become a personal canvas where people can express their identities, beliefs, and experiences. From Otzi the Iceman to Wang Od, the story of tattoos is one of resilience, creativity, and cultural significance. It's amazing to think that this practice, which started as simple markings with soot and bone, has grown into a global art form that transcends borders and eras. Whether they're symbols of status, protection, punishment, or personal expression, tattoos have a deep connection to humanity's desire to tell stories, connect with our roots, and leave a lasting mark, both literally and metaphorically.
All right. So, what do you guys think?
Storytelling. I mean, I thought of it. Like, I just did, every time somebody says your tattoo, I'm like, what's the story behind it? Why do you get it? And I have a whole long answer about this one, and a little one about this one. And it's a fun way to just tell stories and connect with people. They're wearing a little gallery. She has a whole gallery.
It's almost like a way to hold memory, too, because having that on your body is a representation of that whole story. And I mean, I got a story for this one, I got a story for this one on my wrist, this one over here. I got a story for all of them.
Yep.
And it's a way to kind of capture that moment and store it on your skin so that you don't have to store it up here. But, you know, if somebody asks you about it, it's going to come right back to memory. So yeah, it's kind of a way
enjoy
to,
telling people about it, usually.
yeah.
And it's a beautiful way, sometimes you can do it in memoriam. It's a way like to feel connected with like your ancestors or to feel connected to your children. Get something for your kids. Like my sister got a heartbeat and like she put like their date of birth or their initials in between heartbeats. This is for her kids, you know? So it's
And all my siblings have this on my wrist.
that's sweet.
Really?
Yeah, it's nice.
Feel connected.
That's cool.
So when I gave up alcohol forever, and I promised my mom, my sister, and my boys I'd never drink again, I had it tattooed on my back, the date, and love your life or change it, which is my coach's slogan. That way I know, like, if I fuck up and go drink, I've got to stare at that shit, or know that it's on my back. You know what I mean? Like, the worst thing ever. Oh, I drank again. Oh, that was the day I quit, though. You know, the story won't work. I can't ever drink again.
Yeah.
That's
Great.
it.
I'm getting
Yeah.
for that too in October for 5
Awesome.
years. Yeah.
I'm the complete opposite. I will never get a tattoo. I have none on me.
I have one.
Joked about like flash tattoos, like like a hard. Never gonna do it. So I'm the complete opposite. Where I will not tattoo myself.
Okay. Why?
Exactly. Right. Like I think it's more of a commitment to do it than it is to not. I think it's just me kind of preserving the way I was born, and that is like its own form of expression.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Oh, yeah.
me and it always will be. I'm not gonna alter it.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So it's like a certain
Same
respect and
with
reverence.
piercings or?
Yeah, I mean, I just started wearing this stainless steel necklace maybe a month ago. This is the first piece of jewelry besides the watch I've ever owned. So it's interesting. I've got the watch now. I have the beads going on, and I see your wrist. You're flashy right now. You know, you're a big fan of this stuff. That is about as far as I'm gonna go. Is what you see on me right now.
Okay.
My husband said he would never do it, and now he has tattoos.
I mean, that could change someday too.
Yeah.
But I think right now I represent that position of I would never get a tattoo on my body.
What do these stand for, or what do they represent on your? Is it from a certain culture, or?
Yeah, from African culture.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome.
They use a lot of dots to symbolize a bunch of different things. It depends on tribes and locations, but in general, for some of them can represent battle, warrior, hunting, spirituality, life and death. It depends, but yeah, I orchestrated this myself.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think, you know, to your point, I think it's interesting that not doing any body modification is also a way of expressing how you feel about the world and see the world to some degree.
I think it's rebellious to not do it.
Oh yeah, and the culture now that
Yeah.
where tattoos are mainstream.
Yes.
That also being said, the one caveat, I did grow up in a household that was like, don't get a tattoo, you're gonna lose job opportunities. So I've lost plenty of those at my own volition.
I had a fight
So
with
tattoos
this.
made no difference, however, that is what I was told.
I had a fight with this recently because I thought about doing my ears again, but my job and where I work, I represent the company, and one of those things is if I'm walking into a Exxon Mobil that's on a $30 million deal. There's a chance that somebody in there might get upset because I have 2 hoops on each side of my ears. I'm serious, like, it's just the way it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You can't control their bias or
Right.
what they associate with piercings or tattoos.
correct.
Which is stupid. Sorry.
It is stupid. I got directly and indirectly discriminated against because I had 2 friends that were gay. And so they asked me at one point, this was 2 years ago, around December timeframe, I'd taken a job with a really big company I really wanted to work for. And they basically terminated me because one of our partners was upset that I received a turkey from 2 girls that were dating each other. Because they asked me, well, is this your girlfriend? I'm, no, it's not my girlfriend, it's my friend. And I don't know why it came out. I don't even know where it came out in the conversation. I couldn't believe that I said something. But they just took it the wrong way, and literally, this partner has a problem with you, and we're putting you on a warning.
Yeah.
And then they looked for every possible way. A week later, and I was fired. I was in shock. I couldn't believe it, but straight up, I mean, and I couldn't take it anywhere. I didn't want to destroy my image in the industry. And the two girls don't even know. They're still friends today.
Yeah.
It was really sad though.
Well, isn't that how Maine culture tries to oppress subculture? By saying, basically giving you an ultimatum. If you don't do and behave the way that we want you to do and behave, then we will excommunicate you from
Whatever this
this
is.
field, from this kind of job opportunities, from being with this crowd, spending time with these people, right? That's what culture is kind of, or that's what mainstream culture kind of presses on us. But you know, this is really about us and sharing our reasons for body modification. So I know there's a couple of us with tattoos in here, not everybody, but who wants to share a story around their tattoo? Tattoo they got. Why you got
I
it?
can share
Tattoo.
mine. I shared some of it, but I can share the rest. So, in my particular situation, I had 5 seizures in total, 2021 and 2022, and it was just my body started rejecting alcohol. So on two of those occasions, 3 times actually, 3 different times, I was in 3 different car accidents. The last one I completely totaled my car, and I'll admit it, I went 50 miles an hour in reverse into a cop cruiser, which really didn't go very well.
Damn.
So anyhow, after that disaster, and with the amount of money that it cost me just to get charged with the DWI and actually go through all the bullshit, I decided to get that tattoo. It's my coach's slogan. He had a cardiac arrest, and he wrote an autobiography about that. And so I have "Love Your Life or Change It" on the top. That's his, and then 124-22 below. And so that's the last day I'll ever drink again.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Nah.
Anybody else like to share a story from their tattoo?
Yeah, thanks, man.
I don't
Did
know.
not know that.
All my stories are boring, so I don't have any interesting stories.
I'll tell you about the cartel members. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Do you have a cartel one?
No.
That'd be awesome.
It's not a great story, but my cat, I got her when she was 5 weeks old. Before I even met my husband, like I was kind of figuring out the world. I was young. My cat's 15 years old. She's still alive. But I got her tattooed right here. Her name's Iris. It's a cartoon version of my cat because she has gotten me. She's my soul.
Aw.
She's gotten me through all of the hard times in my 20s. She's been with me through my addiction. She's been with me through all of the boyfriends and breakups before I met my husband. She's been with me through like all of it. So I memorialized her while she's still alive.
I love that.
Because I love her so much. And I'm getting my other cat too eventually, but she's special.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
What's your cat's name?
Iris.
Very
And then I have the
Penelope.
Penelope. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's just one.
Who else would like to share? Tattoos.
I'll send it.
I got a tattoo. So I never really wanted to tat like my country's flag, but then I found this tattoo when I was in Colombia, and it made it feel right because I was getting a Venezuelan tattoo from a Colombian, so I was like, yeah,
So
bitch.
awesome.
That's awesome.
So yeah,
That's cool.
so it's like the map of Venezuela with the flag and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was. It's not as cool as your story.
It's pretty cool though.
We're all, yeah, bro. Sure.
I'd have a Venezuelan tattoo if my wife was Venezuelan.
You can still get one.
I know.
I approve.
Okay, good.
So I'll share one of mine then. This is my first one. It's in Japanese kanji, but kanji, or this form of writing, is actually Chinese. And so it reads different depending on which country you come from. If you're Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Taiwanese, it reads differently. But in Japanese, it's live, love, adventure. But ultimately, the writing means I was born for adventure. And so I actually got this after I got out of the military, and I've kind of told the story a bit, but I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I felt really lost, and so I sold everything that I owned and I went to backpack Europe. And when I did that, I started a blog called Live, Love, Adventure. And so I walked all around Europe I had my domain on the back of my shirts and on my backpack, and I had people follow me and read my blog from all over the place, and I did that for a while, but this was kind of born out of that. This is the first tattoo I ever got, and I got it like maybe 3 weeks before I went to Europe, which looking back was not a good idea because I didn't know how to take care of a tattoo. And I literally went from the tattoo shop to get onto a train to go up to DC to hang out with people. So I like wasn't even at home. I wasn't even in my house.
Wow.
But it all went well, and
Made it.
now it's a testament to that part of my journey.
I have one. I have my first tattoo. Was the word warrior. It's on my right shoulder. And I often get people, if I'm wearing something that's like backwards, they're like, it's misspelled, or you need to get it touched up. It's because I replaced the I with the semicolon. Because the semicolon it was pretty trendy, but it means like your story's not over and for suicide awareness. And I was thinking about recently getting it covered up, and then I was like, no, I'm a warrior. That's like that was my origin story.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
What about the 6 sleeve? What about the 6 sleeve?
Well, if you really want to know, my previous job, I was in the Marine Corps. We were doing a lot of stuff, a lot of work, and I gotta tell the story that's behind it. I was 18, and I wanted to get my first tattoo after I was gonna be sick. And we just lost 7 dudes, and I was like, all right, I want to get a tattoo before I die. So I went and got a tattoo, and then we were put on the special program because this was a high profile mission, and so that's kind of what that represents.
Wow. That's what the video talks about, is like a lot of sailors and soldiers. That was like,
Yeah. Well, American sailors are the ones that really brought tattooing to the U.S.
yeah, made it into another one.
and turned it into something that was less stigmatized as like Navy sailors got into the culture. Yeah, awesome, man. Okay, well, so that's a little bit about tattooing. The other aspect of body modification are piercings. Or at least that we're going to cover are piercings. These are a little different, and the cultural relevance is a little different behind them, and how we started.
Come on.
But the origins are.
A video of the year on MTV. Every 15 minutes that damn video played, and so every 15 minutes people saw a navel piercing. Musicians of the 90s were also popularizing facial piercings, sporting jewelry in their lips, nose, eyebrows, and ears. The popularity of piercings trickling down to teenagers had parents in a tizzy, but that just made piercing as a rebellion a lot more appealing. I mean, even Lizzie McGuire wanted a nose ring, for crying out loud.
Take a chill pill, parents, it's just a time.
It can feel rebellious. It can be a form of self-expression, says Tracy Cannon, a piercer at London Sacred Gold Studio. But it also helps people belong and form identity. When I pierce people for the first time, they often say they feel part of the club now. And by the early 2000s, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Beyonce were a part of that club, showing off their belly button rings and their nose rings. A lot of my friends in high school even had belly button rings. I mean, I didn't, because if I did, I wouldn't be making this video for you today. And we were kind of losers. Statement earrings even became a feature of couture runway, from designer brands like Dior and Givenchy. However, much like in the 17th century, views on piercings evolve over time. According to King, we don't do the same quantities of piercings today. In the mid-90s, a piercer might be doing up to 50 a day. Stigmas in the workplace and other social environments may play part in that, but evolving cultural opinions don't necessarily mean a halt in piercings, but a change in placement, a shift in aesthetic, and an improvement of safety protocols. It's clear that people still love piercings as a form of self-expression, but trend more toward discreet options. Rather than a barbell through the bridge of the nose, we see a lot of dainty hoops through the nostril or septum. The curated ear is extremely popular. People still love having piercings in places that their clothing won't cover. We as human beings have always used our bodies as vessels. We have changed our bodies to communicate to the gods or to identify membership with certain groups, and more recently as a means of self-expression. It's a way of showing others who we are and what we believe in. I think that piercings are a really interesting connection to our ancestors. History shows us that it's kind of a part of human nature to want to alter your body as a means of communication and belonging to a community. And if that really is the case, I'm sure that piercings will always be a part of the human story.
Oh, that's why. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it started like with.
I started it like right in the
Intentional.
middle. Okay, well, we'll watch a little bit of the beginning.
June 2nd, 1953. Elizabeth Alexandra Mary, better known as Queen Elizabeth II, was preparing for her coronation at the age of 25. Her father, King George VI, had passed away a year earlier, and after a year of nationwide mourning, it was time for Elizabeth to take his place as monarch. For her coronation day, Elizabeth had many options to pull from the royal collection. Brooches, necklaces, pendants, but one of her adornments stood out, a pair of diamond earrings. The diamonds were originally part of the armlet setting of the famous Koh-i-Noor diamond. In 1849, as part of the treaty that ceded Lahore to the British East India Company, the Koh-i-Noor was specifically earmarked for Queen Victoria, though many would argue that it was not legally hers for the taking, and competing claims for its rightful ownership continue to this day. The Koh-i-Noor itself was set in a brooch, while the flanking diamonds from the armlet setting were reused, first as part of the Timor ruby necklace in 1853, and then as the earrings pendants in 1858. The earrings are comprised of a pair of cushion-cut diamond collet studs, from which a pair of round brilliants and two large pear-shaped pendants are suspended. The pear-shaped diamonds are sisters, not twins. They are very similar in shape and cut, but they are not identical. Until June 2nd, 1953, piercings of any kind were considered crass and uncivilized. But on that day, along with the sovereign ring and the imperial state crown, Queen Elizabeth II wore what would become known as the coronation earrings. In the words of piercing historian Paul King, when the richest and arguably most powerful woman in the world has her ears pierced, it turned all prevailing notions about piercings on their head. While Queen Elizabeth was nowhere near the first to pierce her body, her coronation served as an invitation to change and alter her body for years to come. Piercings have been a ritual for many decades around the globe. King argues that, quote, I can safely say piercings are prehistoric and human remains suggest body modification goes back 25,000 years. However, it is hard to know exactly how widespread piercings were, since they are generally performed on soft tissue like skin and muscle that degrade quickly over time. The earliest physical evidence came from Tanzania. Skeletal remains of a young late Pleistocene era man dubbed Olduvai hominid 1, or OH1, were excavated in 1913. Previous research on his teeth suggested that they had been filed down in a body modification practice, the practice of ablation, where teeth are purposefully removed or modified. However, current research suggests that, based on the era in which this man lived, as well as the negative imprint from a very specific pattern of dental wear, OH1 had actually been wearing a lip ring. The stretching of the earlobes to make longer and wider holes was common in communities living in the Rift Valley and the central and western parts of Kenya, who used heavy hardwood logs to stretch the earlobes. In ancient Rome, piercings were popularized by studs in the ears. However, they were not just a decoration, but a utility. When used in a certain area on a man, and I'm hoping you will know that area based on the context I'm about to give you, piercings were a way of controlling sexuality, to stop certain people from procreating, prevent athletes from using up testosterone, and to keep singers' voices high-pitched. In Mesoamerica, jewelry for piercings was made from jade and organic glass. According to Vitality Materialized on the Piercing and Adornment of the Body in Mesoamerica by Andrew Feingold, in addition to creating spaces to accommodate jewels, the perforation of the body was an activity that carried social significance, most notably in the form of auto-sacrificial bloodletting, but also in rituals that accompanied coming-of-age ceremonies and accession rites. To ward off smallpox and honor deities, Hindus in India pierced their skin with hooks. Across northern Europe, indigenous people were also stretching their ears. But as the Roman Empire expanded across the world, so too did its Christian influence. Christians at the time believed that piercing a body that was made perfectly in God's image was sinful and wrong, and therefore a threat to Christian values. According to Day's digital writer Parissa Hashimpur, in the Western world, piercings were typically only found on people in the outer fringes of society, like sailors and sex workers. This was true for essentially any invader or colonizer around the globe who weaponized Christianity. The Romans across Europe, Spain and Mesoamerica, Britain and Africa and India. Piercings made you a target. They became one more way colonialists could assert their supposed superiority and point out differences as an excuse to commit atrocities. Like many forms of self-expression, such as makeup and wigs, social acceptance of piercings in Europe both grew and wavered over time, but seemingly only for Europeans. Many hip 17th century creatives such as William Shakespeare had their ear pierced, but apparently that same piercing 50 years later would have been unacceptable. Fast forward to early 20th century France, when the Bohemian movement was in full swing and performers exploited Orientalist fascination to appear more exotic. Mademoiselle Polaire, who marketed herself as the, quote, world's ugliest woman, sported a Southeast Asian-inspired nose ring. This fascination among Westerners only grew after Queen Elizabeth girl-bossed her way into letting the rest of the world pierce themselves. In the 1960s, hippies from the United States and England were pouring into a now independent India and adopting their religion, well, parts of their religion, their cultural fashion, and among women, their nose rings. Though piercing anything aside from your ears, if you were female, was something that was practiced only among marginal subcultures, those subcultures grew and grew. Vibrant underground cultures such as the punk movement and the LGBT movements were enthusiastic participants in piercing. In the 1960s and early 70s, Brian Skelly, veteran piercer and board member of the Association of Professional Piercers, says the majority of people were piercing themselves or had a friend brave enough to do it for them. Safety precautions varied, and it resulted in a lot of infections and inappropriate placements. In the mid-1970s, Jim Ward opened the Gauntlet in West Hollywood, California. It was a piercing shop that employed trained and skilled piercers, and it was the first of its kind. Gauntlet employees hosted traveling piercing clinics around the US, and lines would be out the door. In London, a man named Mr. Sebastian set up his own piercing shop. By the 1980s, piercing was a rite of passage for a lot of these underground communities and served as an identifying community trait. By the 1990s, fashion designers such as Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood were borrowing inspiration from these communities, and soon enough, piercing was pulled into the mainstream. In 1993, Aerosmith released a music video for their song Crying, which featured a young, unknown actress named Alicia Silverstone getting her belly button pierced. According to King, a piercing anthropologist, and funny enough, the guy who played the guy piercing Alicia Silverstone's belly button in the music video said it became the video of the year on MTV. Every 15 minutes that damn video played, and so every 15 minutes people saw a navel piercing. Musicians of the 90s were also popularizing facial piercings, sporting jewelry in their lips, nose, eyebrows, and ears. The popularity of piercings trickling down to teenagers had parents in a tizzy, but that just made piercing as a rebellion a lot more appealing. I mean, even Liz McGuire wanted a nose ring for crying out loud.
Taking chill pill periods, it's just a time.
It can feel rebellious, can be a form of self-expression, says Tracy Cannon, a piercer at London's Sacred Gold Studio. But it also helps people belong and...
Okay. So we come first full circle now. All right. So what do you think about that? Piercings as a way of connection with the divine, and then later in human society, a way of self-expression. But for me, it still comes back to the why. What were ancient people doing? What did they know that we don't know about piercings? Because it seems like pretty much every indigenous culture around the world had some practice around piercings and tattoos, some forms of body modification, until the rise of Christianity, or specifically Catholicism. And as Catholicism swept through the world and just obliterated cultures and indigenous practices, we lost the meaning. So now, a good 300-ish, well, maybe like closer to 500 years later, we don't actually know, probably, what they knew about piercings. And one of the things that I've been playing with, now there's no science to back this, but I think it's kind of interesting to play with, is if your body is constantly receiving stimulus and the only way you experience the world is through other things interacting with your body, then perhaps another thing that is occurring is when you get a body modification, specifically like piercings, where you have metal now going through your skin. Metal is a great conductor of electricity and other things, heat and whatnot, that may allow you to have better receptivity to other forms of energy. Maybe a God that speaks can only really be heard if you have the right tools on your body to be able to tune into that frequency. I mean, we have metal that flows through our blood. We are part metal. We have gold and iron and all that good stuff to help build our cells and our bones and all that. But I tend to think that there's something deeper there. Whether or not it's actually kind of like an antenna that helps you locate God, turn into that frequency, or it's just a means of self-expression. I think either way, they're both spiritual, because any form of self-identity is a form of self-spirituality.
I think that that's actually probable. I mean, it's a pretty cool thought experiment. I think there is, for my theory, is that it's a form of communication, because vocabulary has definitely grown from ancient cultures, and since, from what I read, that tattoos and piercings both are status symbols, they're ritualistic. So for Indian culture specifically, where the placement of the nose ring signifies if they're married or they're not. And so it's just like, not to dumb it down, but to simplify communication, so you can just look at somebody, and since people were segregated differently before, it was like you could just look at them, they have this tattoo bag, so they're from that tribe. They have that piercing in that location. You can categorize somebody without any words. And I think that's the significance of some body modifications. Communication.
I'm opposite on that one. Like, is there a woman in this room right now that doesn't have their ears pierced? Your ears are pierced. Every lady's ears are pierced from my experience. So even going back to like the Queen Elizabeth thing, I had no fucking clue. I thought that was just always a thing. girls like diamonds, the jewels in the ear. That's just like that's as like synonymous as like usually longer hair.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained in like just you know a teenage girl. You get your ears pierced the first time.
That's relatively new
That's it's
still.
relatively new.
But
Is what I'm seeing
Also,
here.
young American culture seems to be a lot more accepting of that, like whereas in other countries, like totally accepting of piercings or not at all. Like even our American culture, right? We have like the religious sects of like no form of body mods or tattoos are evil or whatever, and then you have on the further side it's like totally fine. I think it's super cool.
Imagine half a dozen dudes that like look and act like me, all getting their nipples pierced within 6 months of each other as like we're juniors in college now. That is a true story.
I had my nipple from
Oh my
to do it, you know, like,
See what I'm saying?
like I did it myself.
Chris, that was supposed to be a secret.
It wasn't a secret to me back then. I was a professional drummer. I mean, I had 2 ears and 3 ears. Huh?
You pierced them yourself?
Myself, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
They dared me. The band I played with was like, we want you to pierce your nipples. So I took a name badge, stuffed it in, took it out, stuffed the loop in, and did the other side and said, I did it, and played the show.
Rock.
Do you still have nipples? Did they fall off? Or
I took them out. I haven't had them in since like 2002.
Wow, dude.
So
Literally half a dozen.
And then
people I
these
know
same
got
thing.
their
Bring the
nipples
nipple
pierced
rings
back to
back.
We had girls
I
doing
can do
it,
that
guys doing it like
Yeah,
everybody
Greg won't
else.
see.
these what? No, I know exactly. These
Except for me.
I couldn't.
It's gonna be in the meeting,
And
get
then
cold.
also a different
Oh,
Oh God.
sorry.
You just
Unless
gotta carry
it's
around a
a
magnet.
I hear you.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Same with the tattoos. Different group of friends, similar idea. They all lived in the same house or whatever, so they got the address tattooed on their shoulder. Or one guy actually branded himself instead of getting the ink tattoo. Those are just 2 stories that I haven't thought about in about a decade that came back. Is all the teammates piercing their nipples, and all the friend group of 2 different people getting the shoulder tattoo. That's fun. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure they regret it.
I almost went on them again. One of my friends was like, "Don't do it." You know, she's just like,
You should-
literally,
you should do it.
You shouldn't do it anymore.
The fuck was she talking about? Do it.
Well,
I'm not gonna date you.
My mom did my first piercing. I think it was on my left ear, because still in the early 2000s, if you only had one piercing and it was the right ear, and everybody thought you were queer.
Right.
So left ear pierced, and I had that done until I was in the military at
Why
some
was that
point.
even a thing?
Well, that is an
I know.
example kind of justifies my theory.
Yeah.
You look at a person with a piercing, you
Yeah.
categorize theirs before even speaking words. You knew that they were gay or queer from their piercing. So it's probably based in, you know, like for my septum piercing. When I got that, I know that it's very trendy now, but I'm not client facing in my job, but I get on a Zoom meeting and my boss was like, have you always had that? And I'm like, no, I just got it. And she started to push back at it, and I
Really?
was like, well, in my culture it signifies that I'm married. And she was like, oh, in like the moment I looked at it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like about to
Yeah.
HR your ass.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I'm not client facing,
Yeah.
you should have no pushback of that at all. But like I was told my whole upbringing, you wait to modify your nose until you're married, you know? So like now it's like if I went to India, it's like she's taken.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
I mean, it's kind of like, right, how we wear wedding rings
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah, it's just a different way to express things. That's really cool.
If I do this, you know exactly what I mean.
right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Impactful. All you have to do is
Right.
show.
So-
It's just not a ring modified device.
Let's move on to piercings now. Does anybody have stories about their piercings they'd like to share? Why did you get your piercing? What does it make you feel?
I have my.
I just pierced my ears, both of these two.
You do?
I got my piercing, my lobes pierced when I was 6 weeks or months. I was a baby. And I had always wanted another piercing. I was never allowed to get another piercing. So obviously I pierced my belly button, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I got that. And I took it out for a while because everybody had one, and then I put it back because it was cute. And then I just had my dear friend pierce both of my second and third lobes in here just because I really like them. Yeah. And we're gonna do more piercings because I like them.
Well, I just told you guys about my nose,
Yeah.
but I accidentally pierced my thumb trying to pierce my friend's cartilage.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
She was like, "Can you pierce my ears?" It was a whole, her parents wouldn't let her, and she thought if she did up here enough that she could cover it with her hair. So we got the ice, we numbed it. And so I was like, "Do you have something to sterilize it?" She's like, "My dad has cognac, so we sterilized it."
Oh my God.
And then we drank
Oh
some
yeah.
cognac. And then I'm like pushing it, and I
So I'm talking about
she
that.
had it like stuck out of her neck. It was just like stuck in her ear halfway through, and I'm like, "Let me just push it." And then it like got pushed into my finger, and I pulled it out of her ear, and it was stuck in my finger.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
my thumb.
My first
Ouch.
tattoo was also a rebellious tattoo. I got it in my bedroom. There's just a little heart right here. It looks like shit still. I was letting my friend practice, also rebellious. So yeah, a couple of my body modifications were just because I wasn't supposed to. The other ones
Yeah.
We had another band incident, so it was 5 of us, and we were all in South Carolina on spring break. So we walked in this dollar store, and it said ear piercings. I'm like, I'm getting another one. So like,
A dollar store?
dollar store. So we all go in, and they're like, "Hey, Larry," and he's working on sheetrock in the back. He comes out, "Yeah, you guys ready?" And he's got the gun.
What the
Nail
fuck?
So mine turned out great. Everybody else's was like up here or over here, like barely on the lobe of the ear. It was hysterical. So I kept all mine, but they all took one.
were they $1?
$1,
Piercings.
and it included the earring.
Oh,
$1.
And it was like proper metal, like it was.
It was like the gun, you know, like they put your bullet and go, and
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it was.
Dollar
But
piercing.
steroid, Haka, or whatever you had.
Okay. All right. That was an era
Yeah.
where the dollar store was thriving.
Dollar
My
piercing,
name,
bro.
I have a whole town that only knows my name, Spaz. They don't even know my real name as a drummer. So that's where all the, doing my own nipples and shit like that came from.
Okay.
If I had seen a dollar store piercing, when I was younger, they would have sold me alive.
It's not $1.25 it is today. It's $1.
Well,
$1.
I think for me, this little one on my it's not the tragus. What is that called?
Is that a helix?
Helix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, helix. And at the time, I was doing this several years ago now, but I was a little elevated on a substance, and I forgot because I had taken it earlier in the day, and I totally forgotten. And we're just like driving around. I think we went out to like lunch. It was like me and a couple of friends, and then we drove by this tattoo shop that said we do piercings on. And I was like, oh, I should get a piercing. And everybody's like, yeah, let's get a piercing. So we stopped and went to get it, and it wasn't until I was getting the actual piercing that I realized that I was still elevated. And I swear, I could feel like every centimeter of the needle as it's going through my helix. It was the weirdest feeling, and it hurt like a motherfucker. And then I got this, and it got infected, so infected. It was like where you could feel the throbbing. Oh, I thought I was gonna have to take it out, and I actually went to try to take it out because it wasn't a hoop at the time. I think it was just like a simple stud. Barbell, and it was so swollen and inflamed. I couldn't get it out. So eventually, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor and have him cut it. I'll give it like a day or two more and see what happens. And I think all the messing around with it, like pushed some of the pus out or whatever that needed to happen. And it went away, and now I have it. But it was an interesting ride.
I like how the piercings have, it's another thing, like like the tattoos are storytelling because they're visual art, but I never thought about it for piercings. They have stories too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me either.
I mean, like, it is very common to see a girl. Also, earrings are expression. I am the queen of quirky earrings. I'm wearing very regular earrings today. But I love to wear an earring that matches my vibe, or rainbows, because it can be colorful or whatever. So the jewelry, not just the actual piercing itself, should be symbolic and communicative.
Yes.
I too love earrings.
Yeah.
Hey, we gotta go earring shopping, bro. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, I mean, because I literally just.
My septum rings.
Yeah.
Probably maybe 20 years ago, and I did it. I was doing a lot of cocaine and some, and I did it. I pierced it, and I knew if I did that, I couldn't use it. So I did it, and I never have done cocaine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah.
That's the one way to do it.
So I
You know
never
what?
did.
I work in a rehab. I should fucking tell them.
Like, you get some kind of plug and put it in each by side, you know, like that way they couldn't even use their nose, but that's really crazy.
That's the most interesting story so far.
Yes.
Good job. Very good story.
Yeah,
Great
that's
stuff.
really cool.
That's curious.
Yeah. All right. Any other stories? All right, then we will jump to our last video, which is going to be on makeup. So there's a bunch of other body modifications too, because there's other kinds of body modifications. For example, like circumcision is a form of body modification for a spiritual purpose or practice. But I couldn't find, there actually weren't any good videos on a lot of other body modifications, at least for the history. It was like this specific area's history. You know, it's like a 10-minute video on just like Nigerian body practices, body modulation practices.
Do you think like working out is a form of body modification?
Yes.
Of expression?
It's
Oh, yeah.
over the edge now with those two
Backstory, but like I know there's probably some other issues, but like that's also something. I don't know about the history because
It is 100% like
people had to do more.
Yeah, exercise is not inherently that, but people turn it into a form of body modification. And
Yeah.
that's like you see dysmorphias.
Yeah.
Like people who go way over the edge or really just start like crafting their bodies with drugs.
Let's see.
Like people like arms made it cool.
Yeah.
Arms made it okay.
Yeah, I haven't. I was just looking to see.
That's a really interesting one.
Okay, so we have actually two choices for the video. So we can do makeup, or we can also do this one that I found on how shaving your head can raise your energies.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that because we also forget that hair is a way of body modification as well.
Who's got the clippers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's got
I
I'll
mean,
do it right now.
it's huge. I mean, when we're talking like African culture, hair is huge. And there's other cultures too, but that's a huge one. And so I thought this was a better video because I couldn't find one just on hair and spirituality. Which I looked and I couldn't find just a really good synopsis. So I thought this would be better because he actually talks about what is happening when you cut your hair. So I thought that was cool, or we can go to makeup. If we have time, I might be able to do both, but.
I like that guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah, he's a character.
Yeah,
I enjoy him. Alright, let's do this and see how shaving your head affects your body.
Any pizza, any toppings, for just $9.99. Sheesh, all kinds of ideas.
I forgot we had that. We haven't like that one.
Will focus its energy. If you suddenly remove this hair, then you will see the energies will move in that direction. If you activate the two chakras which are above the physical body, it's a phenomenal possibility It also makes your physical body a little fragile. We've spoken plenty about this, but anyway, if you prune this tree today, the tree will focus its energy towards the area that's been pruned, and you will see, suppose you prune this part of the tree and don't prune that, you will see in this part of the tree, the number of leaves that will come out in the next 15 days or a month is much, much more than in the other part of the tree. Have you noticed this? Yes or no? Because now that this is pruned, the tree directs its energy in that direction. The others it will leave and direct this way because here the leaf must come back. The same happens in your body. If you suddenly remove this hair, then you will see the energies will move in that direction. So people who are doing certain type of sadhana want that to happen. So people don't just shave their head whenever they feel like it. On the darkest night of the month, which is called as the Shivaratri, the 14th day of the moon's phases, one day before Amavasya, on that day they shave, because on that day and the Amavasya day and the next day, when the energies are naturally, there is an upsurge of energy in the human system, we want to accelerate that a little more. So on that day it is taken off, because there is sadhana attached to that. If there is no sadhana, it won't make much of a difference. Some of you may know that, particularly ladies who have never shaved their head in their life, suddenly one day if they go and shave their hair, they will become mentally imbalanced because excessive energy in that direction they are not able to handle. If already there is a small imbalance, it will exaggerate itself because there is an excess energy movement in that direction. But if it's calibrated properly and there is a necessary sadhana to support it, it works to your benefit. So a spiritual seeker, a sadhaka, who is not only seeking for a spiritual well-being, who is seeking how to become an instrument of a larger possibility, such a person wants to use every little support that is available in nature. So shaving one's head is a part of that. If there is no such sadhana, if that type of sadhana is not there, shaving off the hair has really no meaning as such. And if somebody reaches a state where his energies are really bursting out of his head, if you activate the two chakras which are above the physical body, if those two chakras become active in someone, then we will not shave. In fact, we would like to grow it and tie it up just above that so that it is protected and nurtured. If you don't have enough hair, we will use cloth. You think I'm bandaged or something? Just in my leg, but so if there is not enough hair, then you have to use something else. But you will need that, otherwise there will be… Once the two chakras above the physical body are on, it's a phenomenal possibility, but it also makes your physical body a little fragile. It tends to draw more than it should. And this is the reason lot of yogis die before they're 35. Because once they attain to a certain level of energy, if they don't know all the different aspects of the body, if they do not understand the mechanics of how the human system functions, if you do not understand all the tricks of the Creator, in how many ways He's made this so complex and sophisticated, because sophistication is not just to make it complicated. Sophistication means there are more possibilities than simplistic machine. This is a highly sophisticated machine, so once the energies have topped off, then it needs to be protected. If you have thick, long hair, that could be made use of. It's a natural garment. If you don't have, or if you're afraid you'll lose your hair, then you dreadlock it. You know the dreadlocks you see in sadhu sannyasis. It can be done, I won't tell you how, because if you start going around with dreadlocks, that will not be good. There's a way to get your hair into a dreadlock. So you do that. Or if you don't have that much hair, then you use something else. Garment or a cloth comes in handy. The nature of the body is such, the volume of energy that one neuron consumes in the body, in the brain, is many fold more than what one cell in the body consumes. So, in terms of the physical structure, how the energy consumption is distributed. You can see this yourself. If somebody worries about something, they will lose weight. The best ways to lose weight is worry about something. You know that, isn't it? Yes or no? Because more activity means, more stressful activity in the brain means it will consume a lot of energy and it will bring down the body's weight. So, the reason why Hatha Yoga is as important as it is simply to be able to conduct the body in such a way that your energies are well rooted in your physicality before you attempt higher possibilities. If one is not well rooted in his physicality, then higher possibilities will take you off from physicality. Taking you off from physicality means one may become less capable physically, or he may leave altogether. Some of the Buddhist scriptures say, Gautama, before his enlightenment, walked like a man. After his enlightenment, he walked like a woman. What they're trying to say is, the body became less. In physically, definitely a male body is little more than a female body. So he became little less. So he lost his manly capabilities and became soft because his energy shifted to a different dimension. That's what they're trying to say.
I like that guy. He always has a very interesting perspective. Interesting. So what came up for all you?
I feel like I've done this before, and it's because something my mom told me. So in 2019, I fucked up my ankle pretty bad, being drunk in Louisiana. And life kind of spiraled a little bit for 6 months. I didn't lose my job, but I couldn't go to work. So I was making no money. So, shit was a mess. I had long hair too. I don't know, one day I was talking to my mom and she was just like, you know, it was around the time I started to heal, I was walking again. I started to walk again. She was like, I feel like, you know, you need a cleansing in like your life and shit you're doing, and you've like constantly been getting into some bad shit. Like, you know, maybe cut your hair. You know, that has a lot of energy and it holds a lot of the negative energy that you've been going through and stuff like that. And I mean, I didn't know how to take that. I was like, what? I was like, you know, but then I was like, okay, you know, shit's been going so bad and like nothing is really changing. So what is it gonna hurt to try something different? You know what I mean? Like I was open to just anything different to kind of get my head out of things, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I cut my hair and I feel like for a good like year, 2 years, like it was good. I felt different, like I felt like I was moving different, like, you know, I don't know. It was like a breath of fresh air, you know?
Yeah. Well, and isn't it interesting too that your mom said that? Who knows where she?
Yeah, who knows where she got it, exactly.
But then you randomly, years later, there's another video.
Yeah,
An
exactly.
Indian guru that's like, yeah, cut your hair and you remove some of that energy.
Yeah, it's coming full circle.
Creating
It's
different
kind of
classes.
interesting.
Yeah.
I went through the phase, even 2 years ago. So for the longest time, I really didn't like the mixed salt, pepper, black, gray, whatever the fuck color it is these days. So I'd shave it all off. I mean, literally shave it bald, or go and get it haircut for $8 and she'd take it down to a half all the way around. Zero fade, half of it. But yeah, and my ex-wife used to blow a gasket about it. I'm like, is that your hair? She's like, you look like a bowling ball. And I'm like, okay, well, fuck off. I don't really care. I'm gonna wear my hair this way. And it worked really well for a competitive CrossFit because I could wash my hair off in like 3 minutes and be ready to go again. Yeah, but I did at least for 10 years. It was bald, almost bald, or at least a zero fade.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm super unhealthily attached to my hair. So this isn't a personal story, but I have heard about like people with dreads that when they pass away, people will cut off a piece of the person who passed their dread and then lock it in with their hair to carry their energy around. I thought that was really cool. Something else I was gonna say in the end, I just forgot. It'll come back. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. They're like they're carrying a piece of them with them forever, or maybe not forever, but until they're
for some time.
through it, processing it, you know?
Yeah. Well, something interesting that he said that I'll have to look up the science of this. But he was saying that your hair cells require more energy than other cells in your body.
I think you're talking about neurons.
Your neuron.
The video just
Neurons, yeah.
not the hair cells. The thing inside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the printing, like, cut your hair, now it's got to grow, right? Whereas right now, if my hair is kind of longer, it doesn't look like it's growing, but if I were to shave it, I can see that it's growing quicker. And every time I get like a nice haircut, you always feel kind of good afterwards, right? You're feeling yourself, you're like, damn, okay, cool. And I think there's a certain level of like energy that comes with that, you know? Even from the military, when we would shave our heads, right? A higher level of energy would work, right? Like, I definitely don't run like how I used to, you know?
I'm wondering if it's because, like, does that energy come from, like, you feeling good about it? Or, like, is it actually your hair?
I have no idea. So, no.
I
do have a piece of my hair from when I was younger.
Yeah.
I had a 2 foot tall like mohawk.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
Big old Larry spice.
I kept that. Didn't know how to.
I was raised with a weird connection with hair because he was Sikh, but he was not practicing. He cut his hair. He didn't keep it all and wear a turban. But Sikhs believe, kind of like you're born in this way. Let's respect God's creation, so they never cut their hair.
Yeah, right. You see facial hair all over the place.
Yes,
Like,
they wrap their
women
facial
don't
hair
do it,
into
nobody
the
cuts
turban
it.
too. So I didn't cut my hair until I got like lice in like 3rd grade. It was down to my knees, and I had this weird relationship with hair, and I felt like owned by it to an extent. And so in like 2018, I had a very Britney Spears moment, and I was like, I'm gonna shave it, guys. I'm gonna shave it. But then I went to the stylist, and she felt my head, and she's like, you got a lumpy head. So she convinced me to do a pixie instead. But I did chop off like all of my hair up to a pixie, and I felt like you, 100. Like I felt like it was just like freedom, and everything felt new. And I don't know if it was something about just, it was a new start. It was symbolic. But then my dad's like telling me, he's like, make sure you have disposed of that hair, because he's like, people can do things with the hair. Like you can, memorialize it and lock it in, but it's like, just put it in the river and make it go back with nature. Make it go back to God. And so it's like, okay. So chopping it all off really is cathartic.
Well, to go back to what I was saying earlier, hair cells, I mean, even if they're not requiring more energy, I don't know, I'll have to look that up because now I'm curious. But one interesting thing about hair is that in science, we use hair a lot for biometrics because hair contains basically a record of how your body has functioned over basically since it started growing. So if you cut somebody's hair follicle from like the root, and let's say it goes all the way down to their knee, however many years that is, you can get a chemical makeup of those years. Yeah. So we collect hair cortisol. So you can see how stressed a person was throughout their life using hair cortisol levels. So your hair carries memory, like literal memory of your experiences. I had never thought about it, like cutting the hair.
Of course. So it makes sense.
But that's fascinating.
symbolic in a way.
I haven't had a haircut since I've been sober. So if you cut my hair and you could see all of that.
Be a cool thing to train.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd pay I'd pay.
See your journey and your hair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else is in hair follicles. I mean, I know there's proteins and fats and things like that, but cortisol is one of the best biomarkers we have for how stressed your body is. So it works really good for creating a nice record for that. Yeah, so something to just keep in mind, that there may be an element of memory stored in your hair that you do carry around with you. I mean, your hair is still a fiber, it's gonna break down over time, so it may break down and release some of that cortisol into your hair, into other parts of your hair, onto your scalp.
I think my hair I lost a lot of hair when I quit drinking, like it was coming out. Which is why I'm like super attached to it now. It was coming out. So I wonder if it got rid of all that shit on its own.
Wow, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
The same way that dogs shed their hair in the springtime.
Yeah.
It's totally, that does not like seem weird at all when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's
That's
actually
actually
small spot if I may real quick. This is from birth. Yeah, that's like out of the womb, this spot. People are like, did you fall? Are you okay? It's like always has been here. It's kind of the shape of a human thumb. So I'm thinking it's like the doctor kind of something like that. Or like people fucking hate this for some reason. People see it and they don't like it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I've gotten a surprising amount of flack for this, like, I don't know, alopecia. I don't know what the term would be, but this has always been here. I like to think it's God's thumb. What's up, brother? Just dapped me right in the forehead. Yeah. So it could be a positive thing too. But this one's interesting because that is like kind of the symbolism of baldness. It's like I've had this baldness since I was literally day one.
Yeah.
Which can be interesting if you spin it the right way. you probably had hair but made that conscious choice to take it all off. That one interests me. I didn't choose this. It's just there. It's just like an anomaly. You have made like a fashion decision or like a.
To a degree.
So what is it?
To a degree.
Let's
Yeah. So actually, I got a fungal. Well, so I started modifying my hair in high school, where I started to use hair straighteners. And from that, I think what actually happened is I had chemical burns on my head from straightening. Yeah, relaxer. Sorry, relaxer.
Yeah.
And but eventually, when I was in the military, I got a fungal infection on the top of my head that I could not get to go away, and I dealt with it for probably about a year. And I was in training, so like the doctors were not helpful. I was in like doing survival school training, so I was like out in the backwoods of Seattle, or not Seattle, Washington State. And I couldn't get the help that I needed to clear up the fungal infection, so I have a lot of scarring. And ultimately, through that process, I lost my hair.
Wow.
And it never came back. None of this right here.
No kidding.
Like all of this right here disappeared, never came back. Obviously, the sides grow. But also, just baldness runs in my family, so it could just been expedited. Yeah.
It looks good.
But
You pull it off.
Looks great, man.
But I do play around with other hair, right? I have this actually. I started doing this maybe like a year ago, 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
I don't know. We
Yes.
watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon with Donald Glover and.
Oh, yeah.
I wish you was.
That version, okay, because then it now gets into like my wife is bald and I got slapped in the face at the Oscars.
Yeah.
My head's from there.
No.
Okay.
But he, in the show, Donald Glover had like this really cool thing he did with his beard where he like had lined it in a really interesting way. And so I like that and I started to do that. But then I also realized like some of my beard hair right here doesn't come in that thick. And so it didn't give that nice clean line. Because he has a very thick beard. So I didn't have clean lines, so it just kind of looked like something got fucked up. So I was just like, well, you know what? Let me push this back and just take out that part that doesn't fill in anyways.
That's cool.
And
Looks great.
you know, it's my own kind of style, and yeah. So it's like a way that I modify my body, and now I like it. One of my friends was like, "You kind of look like a villain in an anime." And I was like,
There you go.
"That's the best compliment."
I have
I'll
this
take that.
right here. So that, I don't know, at the time it was 2021, so could have been 24-hour fitness, CrossFit S5, really barbell, any of the gyms that are riding or recycling, wherever I went. So I got this infection. It started as like a scab. It was almost like skin had peeled off or something. Then it was all, you know, like infected. I could tell it was infected. I went to the doctor. I had cream probably like 3 months. Kept giving me stuff. They gave me steroids. They gave me this. They gave me and nothing would fix it. It finally went away, but I have permanent scars from that staph infection. Kind of wild.
Yeah, it had to be staph.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. See, I mean, it's there forever.
Yeah, shit's gnarly.
It is.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
My facial hair is turning blonde. This is
Uh-huh.
now I'm like just oversharing, but like I notice in the mirror, I am trying to I have had a good mustache before. It takes a while to grow. I obviously don't have a ton to work with, but like I'm noticing that probably a good half of my facial hair has gone from the typical brown that you would expect to back to blonde now. Very interesting. Anyway, I shouldn't say. Touch of gray from my face. You know?
I mean, as long as you're not sharing inappropriate things.
Right?
It's not that fair.
Alright.
My facial hair is coming in nicely.
Anyways, so the human body is a really interesting I don't even know what it's called, maybe a structure. Because we're constantly dealing with things like, staph infections and, hair loss and all these other things, on top of wanting to express ourselves in other ways, but at the same time, it's really, you're born into this thing, which you would think that you would just know how it works, but you don't. And so somebody has to teach you how it works for your early childhood. And then at some point you realize that not everything you were told was true. And so you have to then go back through and weed through all the things that other people told you and actually glean what is true and what is not. And a lot of that revolves around culture. And so body modification and culture is hugely important because especially ancient people, they knew a lot of things that we don't know, and we may never know why they did things again. But the more we start experimenting with it, and the more we start to really try to figure out what our body is saying and how it says it, and maybe even getting in touch with something like our chakra system, which in my opinion is really just tuning into your nervous system and feeling how your bundles of nerves are firing, where they're firing, how they're connecting throughout your body, and then being able to tap into that to help yourself heal, relieve stress, to find better ways to do things, is, I think, what body modification is really about at its core. Because until you change something, you can't really know what you're feeling. But, and to kind of put this into just a little bit more perspective, when we're talking about cutting off your hair and like a lot of energy starts to go to that place, well, one of the things you can think about is when you get a new haircut, what do you feel? Everything. Like everything, right? Like when people touch your head, it feels different. When the wind blows, it feels different, right? And what does that do? It brings focus, it brings awareness to those areas. And so as a byproduct, you're probably moving energies there anyways because of that. But even down from just rubbing your arm, if you are stimulating any of your cells in any kind of way, you bring blood to that area, you bring attentive focus to that area, and you actually cause those areas to be stimulated for growth. So cutting your hair may be one way to stimulate growth, rubbing your arms, doing all these different things, even putting on makeup and paint is a way to bring attention and focus to these areas. Because even though I'm not really feeling the paint on my face, my cells absolutely do. They know that there's something on top of them not allowing them to breathe, or maybe even covering over parasites that are on my facial skin or other microbes, things that disrupt or cause changes to that environment.
You put that on your face, so your subconscious is running a script that you have dots on your face. When you take a glance, you have dots on your face in the mirror. You know you're going to have the dots. That's why Indian people wear bindis too. It's actually to stimulate the third eye chakra. So it's a symbolic thing, but there is a physical structure. Either they have it with the Hindus wear I forgot what the actual term is, but it's the version of it right there, or they wear these little stickers. It's a little stimulation, like you put it there, so it's running the script, always sending that energy.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool because also a part of Eastern cultures is bowing. And when they bow, though, they're bowing to the goodness or the other Buddha inside that person. But as a byproduct, if you're bowing, you're saying, hey, I'm recognizing the good in you. Well, and then they bow back and they say, I'm recognizing the good in you. What does that suggest? There's a suggestion that, hey, you're a good person at your core. Deep in here, I know that there's love and compassion and kindness that you want to spread and share with everybody else. And then the same thing for you. It's a way for us to stimulate each other for those kind of things. So wearing a bindi may be a good way for people to just remember, oh, maybe I should focus on that chakra, on this feeling right here, the pineal gland.
It also represents
deep
marriage
structure
too, like everything in Indian culture, I swear, it's like 50 different ways to see if they're married. But yes. Yeah.